Uh, Good morning. This is Steve Gladys with Leadership and Philanthropy, and I'm here today with a good friend, a colleague for many years, Len Forkas, who's the CEO of Milestone. He's an entrepreneur. He's an adventurer. He's an amazing guy. Len, great to have you here today, man.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to be the CEO of this company? Where'd you start out?
Yeah, well, I moved to the Washington, D.C. area, almost 35 years ago. And, I studied architecture in school and came here working as an architect. And then eventually I transitioned into the development business. I got my MBA at American University at night, became an apartment developer and then a land developer, worked for, a big home builder, worked for a bank when things got rough in the 90s, and then started my own real estate company. And then in 2000, I got interested in the cell tower business because it kind of acts like real estate and functions like real estate. And so I started a company called Milestone Communications in around 2000. And since then, I've been building cell towers, partnering with municipalities like Fairfax County Schools and Loudoun County government. And we build towers on their high schools and their softball fields and their parks. So we've got, right now, today, we've got 60 partners, mostly municipal, school, and utility companies. And we built hundreds of towers on their real estate. We generate revenue for them from the carrier leases that AT&T and Verizon, T-Mobile, they pay us rent to build a tower, to lease on the tower. And it's been a real win-win. We operate in 6 different states. We're based in Reston, Virginia, but right now I'm based at home. And like all of us. And, but I'm blessed. I'm blessed, Steve, I'm so blessed to have made the transition from design to real estate with a technology twist. And then in the last 20 years, this business has been so resilient against all the economic bumps because of the fact that wireless connectivity has become so integrated into our lifestyle. Yeah. And now that we're going forward to the next generation of networks, the demand on the networks is going to be continue to require more infrastructure, and that's our sweet spot.
So what have you learned? You've done a lot. What have you learned in your journey about leadership and things like that? What have you gleaned? You've done a lot of things.
Well, when I started my business, it was just me, and and I had my prior jobs. I had teams that I managed and so forth. But, for the most part, I realized that in order to get, some of the skills and also the connectivity, volunteering for organizations like the Chamber, I know you're very active in the Chamber. My big organization was called the Urban Land Institute. It's a real estate organization. And I was able to move up in that organization and manage volunteer teams. So a lot of my leadership skills actually came from my volunteer experience, managing big goals, big events or big programs with really bright people. And, they weren't paying me. So if I screwed up, whether they could fire me, but the bottom line is I learned so much about how to treat people and how to manage people and how to establish big goals and achieve them through my volunteer experience. And all of it translated into the things that I've been able to do, in my business.
Len, I would say you're a giver. In the sort of giver-taker world, you're a giver. Tell me about how that's worked out for you.
Well, the giver piece, came from my mom. My mom was always volunteering, and whether it was for the church guild or the schools and so forth. And she always told me, she said, you don't go out and focus 100% of your career and make lots of money, and then when you're retired, give it away. You have an opportunity to give back every single day. And that really stuck with me. And I think, it's made me a better person by always having that in the front of my mind on ways that I can use my skills and resources to contribute to others.
Well, I agree. And I agree with your mom. In fact, that's kind of when people ask me that question. I have the same answer. My mom was the same way. I learned it from her. But I like the idea of not waiting until you die to give away your wealth. It's like, do it while you're still here, and you've got places that you can direct it to. Besides your family, you can always take care of them as well. what have you learned? Well, first of all, how would you describe your leadership style? You're a charismatic kind of guy. How would you describe yourself?
Well, when I was young, I used to work in a laundry in a nursing home
Oh,
doing laundry. I used to stamp steel at a night shift
yeah,
in Cleveland, Ohio, to make money to go to college. I was a busboy. I mean, I had a dozen jobs before
yeah,
I turned 18.
yeah,
And I realized that you have to honor every job, every worker, every person that contributes to a goal. You have to honor that, and so that's kind of part of my core.
hmm,
And so and that also creates some humility, because if you've done those jobs, you
yeah,
understand how many hardworking people there are, and those jobs have to be done.
yeah,
So to me, that's the biggest piece, is that to honor every form of work and honor all people, no matter what walk of life, what race, what creed, what age, and so forth, that everyone has an opportunity to contribute and to honor what they do. So that's, to me, primary. I
yeah,
think the secondary is, with my team, is that you got to learn that mistakes are opportunities to learn, and if you're not making mistakes, then you're not taking risk.
uh-huh,
And I always tell my team, I'd rather have you make 100 decisions and have 80 of them be right than
yeah,
make 10 perfect decisions. Because every time we screw up, if we share it and we deconstruct it, everybody in our team can figure out why, and they can learn from that one mistake, and it becomes a multiplying effect to become a better organization. So that, to me, is be humble, honor any form of work, and mistakes are part of life, and you learn from them. And if you don't make mistakes, it means you're not taking enough risk.
no, I would agree with that. Don't let great get in the way of good, right?
Yeah,
That sort of thing.
absolutely.
Um, so just a little bit of sidelight, because it's such a big part of your life. You do a lot of other kind of wild things. I mean, like biking across America, climbing mount. I mean, you're like a Renaissance guy. So tell us about a couple of things few things you've done. I mean, you've done some really amazing things.
Well, the part of doing the things that I do is in the context of a nonprofit I started called Hope Cam.
Hmm,
My son, as you know, had cancer when he was 9, back in 2002,
hmm,
and we figured a way to connect him to his classmates using this technology back in 2002. I mean, back when he had cancer
wow.
and leukemia in January 2002, there was no Zoom. I mean, it was just Microsoft, net meeting.
Yep.
But I was able to figure out how to do this 18 years ago, and
Wow.
I saw what an impact it made for my son when he was immunosuppressed, stuck at home, couldn't go to school, depressed and lonely,
Mm,
and how much his world lifted up when he could see his friends and talk to his friends. And so I started this charity, which you've been a contributor to,
mm,
and the way in which that I've been able to initially was funding the nonprofit was to go out and run ultra marathons or 100-mile runs or Ironmans.
oh,
And so
wow.
that was where the genesis came from. Was I figured, okay, if I want to raise money for this nonprofit, I can do it by trying to do things that are hard and getting people like you to contribute per mile. And so that was kind of how that was the fulcrum, that kind of started to
Oh,
spin in raising resources, and it ended up translating into doing a 400-mile bike ride in 24 hours. I did a race called Race Across America.
I
Been going on
remember.
for almost 40 years. It starts in California. It ends in Maryland. You have to do it in 12 days. So do the math. That's 250 miles a day. And I did it twice. I did it in 2012. I raised 350,000. In 2017, I raised $1 million.
Wow.
And as you know, I wrote a book about it. You encouraged me to help write that book called What Spins the Wheel.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I always found that I could use the gifts that God gave me to go out and pursue really hard physical goals and inspire other people to do the same, but also tie it back to a mission,
Mm,
which was I'm doing this to help generate awareness and resources. And the other thing we did was every time I would do a race, I'd always honor a child with cancer and tell their story
yeah, I
and
remember.
explain that I'm doing this for a guy named Alex Green, who's
Yeah.
fighting Wilms tumor. And, and those type of stories about children who went through incredible bravery fighting cancer. And I would tell their stories as I'm doing these really hard things. I would tell their stories as well. So it kind of became, a great way to tie the two together.
Wow. Great story. It's funny, Len. I guess I didn't put it together till later that that's what started you on these crazy,
Yeah.
climbing
Hmm.
mountains and, going across country and all that stuff. And I now just sort of put that together. I've known you for however long, I mean, a long time, but I just now put that together. And by the way, coming up with basically Zoom 20 years before it is just, to me, amazing. We ought to have you doing crystal balls somewhere on something new. 'Cause that's amazing. Um, your philanthropy has become such a big part of your life. It's hard to distinguish, honestly, between your business and that. And whenever I think of you, I really don't think of your business first. I think of your philanthropy first. And it's nice to know that started with your mom. Are there pieces of advice you would give companies or other people about giving back and how to do that? I mean, you've made it sort of part of your DNA. I mean, like I say, it's, if there's a double helix, one of them is philanthropy for you. That's for sure.
Well, I think a couple things. One is that, my day's not bifurcated into 2 hours of philanthropy and
Yeah, right.
8 hours of work and so forth. It's all just jumbled together, like so many things, just like planning for my next, venture and so forth. But I think a couple things. I think number one is alignment. You got to find the alignment. And for me, helping children with cancer was completely aligned because I lived through it.
Yeah.
And I saw it in real time, what my son went through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that when you can focus on areas that really resonate with you from a personal standpoint, you're going to be much more drawn to make an impact in those types of environments, whether it's an impact from a family member, an impact for you, or someone you're close to. So I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I think that as you go about raising resources to create impact, you have to be absolutely fearless about asking for support for what you're aligned to, because it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not asking people to help you. You're asking people to help create an impact. Mm-hmm. And so I think so many folks are really timid and fearful about asking people for resources to help a specific nonprofit. They feel like they're imposing on people, but it's actually just the opposite. Because as you know, science and research tells us that when we give to others, we actually feel better about ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's our tribal nature, right? That goes back a million years, is that's part of our DNA, is to support and help others in need. And it makes us feel really great about the fact that we are able to do that. So when you can convey trust in your nonprofit, that you're going to take those resources from that donor and you're going to put them to work, and you're going to come back and show them the impact of their investment in your organization or your mission. Mm-hmm. That's the secret sauce. And Eileen Ellsworth, who's a mutual friend of ours, did a great TED talk about this, that it's not, I give to you and you thank me. It's not that at all. It's we're partners. Yeah. You have a goal of creating impact in the world, and I know how to do it. And you need me, and I need you. And if we're aligned in a way that we both are accomplishing the goal in the area of whether it's helping children or veterans or health issues or depression, whatever it is, if you can create that alignment and have the trust with each other to create that impact, then it's a beautiful partnership. And the accountability is the sharing of the impact. And that's what really makes people want to give more, because they can see that the investment they've made, just like my investors, nobody invests in my business because they like me or they like my industry. They invest in my business because I produce results for them with the resources that they shared with me. And I think it's no different when it comes to philanthropy and with organizations.
Oh, Len, great advice there. I appreciate it so much. And, you're an amazing example of those two things coming together, that leadership and philanthropy coming together, to help the tribe. I mean, the tribe is, the people you live with. It's the people in the community. It's the people in the country. It's a nested kind of tribal thing that we live in, right? I mean,
absolutely. And it's also, Steve, it's also the development of your people and
yeah.
allowing them to get their own legs. For example, the Hope Camp team, we're elevating Lauren to executive director, and she's going to manage the enterprise. That's going to free me up to be able to do other things. In a couple of weeks, I'm replacing Catherine Falk as the chairman of the Fairfax County Public School Foundation.
Oh, wow.
We have an amazing board, and we've never had a time, our 150th anniversary for Fairfax County Public Schools. And there has never been a more important time for us to support those children than right now. And so I feel blessed that I've been able to empower my nonprofit team to be able to not need me so much. And now that I can focus on this new opportunity. So I think that's the other thing too, is you also got to learn to hit refresh and move on and be able to create impact and not get pigeonholed, in one area.
Well, nobody's ever going to accuse you of that. Thank you, Len Forkas, my friend and a model for everybody, entrepreneur, an adventurer, a great business guy, and a real saint of a person. We really appreciate it, Len. Thanks for taking the time to talk. It's I can't wait to see what's next for you. It's a never-ending great movie to watch. Good to see you, my friend.
I'm honored that you invited me. Thank you, Steve.
You take good care now. Bye now.
Okay. You too.